All right. Hello. Good morning. Welcome back to JJD TV. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming. And we are here for the morning after stream of the match we saw last night between the Canadian men's national team and Argentina to kick off Copa America in front of 70,000 plus people. There's a lot of takeaways, a lot to discuss, and we're going to continue the conversation. I think I streamed for roughly 4-5 hours last night, so I didn't have the greatest sleep, but I'm excited to come back on this morning and discuss it. We're also going to have Alex and Ben stop by. They were at the match last night. They got a couple crazy stories from their adventures last night, so I'm excited to have them on. I think Alex will be jumping on in 10 or so minutes. I think Ben said he'd be popping by at around 11:30. So just start it off. Let me know what you guys thought of the match. Let me know some of your biggest takeaways. If you were watching me in the pregame and the watch along yesterday, you guys know a lot of my opinions, but I want to hear from you guys this morning. So I'm gonna ask in the chat, what is your last night? What is your biggest takeaway from last night? Let me know. And we'll get into some comments. Luke Carrier starts it off and says, I'm proud of the boys. I'm proud of the boys too. I know it's tough because we had our chances. Argentina had several more chances than we did. I'll take a 2-0 performance any day of the week going into Peru and Chile. I think that they should be feeling good about themselves. There's a lot of really good things to take away. I'm hoping from each match Jesse Marsch can make certain changes to keep growing this team and adapting to each situation, and I think that we're going to see that. Taking on Argentina, the defending World Cup champions, Copa America champions, is never going to be easy. And I think that the boys should have their heads held high. It's a little bitter because there's opportunities in there for Canada to create chances and, maybe try to push to get something from the game. JJD TV, Halifax fan here. Let's go. I'm going to become your best fan and your best drinking buddy. Well, if I go to Halifax, I'm going to be looking at you, my man. I think now that we're through 3 games and Jesse's had his chances, the next games are his real tests and to get the most out of this squad. I agree. We knew the first 3 games, and I've said it so many times, Netherlands, France, Argentina. Does it get much harder than that to start off your reign as Canada coach? I don't think so. And there's a lot of really positive things to take away from these games. And now we go against the two games that I honestly have a lot more expectations about, where I'm 4 to 6 points, I think should be the goal. And if we want to make it out of the group, that absolutely is the goal. That is what we need to accomplish. So I'm excited. I'm excited for these next 2 games because these are the ones that after the first 3 very difficult matches, we're going to see what Jesse's tactics and style looks like against an opposition that's probably a little bit more on an even playing field. Canada had a great game yesterday. Holding the World Cup champions to 2 goals is insanely impressive. Great work from the entire team. I agree. And I saw a tweet yesterday, which I kind of chuckled about, but they said because some people were arguing that, Argentina could have scored 5-6 goals, but at the same time, Canada could definitely score a couple too. So I know it was a 2-0 scoreline, but it could have been a 5-2 scoreline, which also would have equaled a pretty entertaining match. I am a touch worried about the amount of goals that we have scored in the last 3 games because it's been 0. And then obviously Kone, he was a big question mark as well for some of you guys. I wouldn't say he was awful yesterday. I just think that he was overthinking it. You predicted 2-0. At least there's a positive. I don't know if it's a positive, but I did predict 2-0. I was gonna go 1-1, a little bit more friendly approach, but maybe should put a little bet on that. Takeaways is Schaff needs to start. Schaffenberg was a very, very impressive performance coming off the bench. I'm curious. I'm going to ask Alex and Ben when they get on how this team potentially could shake up for the next couple matches. I've said it. I truly believe that Canada will go with the same starting 11 in one of the next 2 matches. I think they're going to make a couple. That's what most tournament teams do, and it's usually the second game. So I just feel like against Peru, we could see a Schaffenberg maybe start, a Larea start, Jason Russell-Rowe, maybe Kamal Miller, although I don't know. That's kind of where my head's at. And then I'm expecting probably the same starting 11 against Chile. Goalkeeper save, Crapoli is leaving MLS. Crapo had a phenomenal performance. He did. It could have been a lot worse. taking on Messi the way he did and making those saves. You gotta. Do you think Larin should start? I don't. Like I said, going into understanding how Jesse Marsch wants to play, I always thought that Larin wasn't going to be a great fit. I think that he worked his ass off yesterday. I really do. It's just, it just wasn't a pretty match for him. I thought he did well coming back, trying to hold up the ball. He had a beautiful cross that Usaki should have put in the back of the net. I don't think he had an awful game. I really don't believe that he's perfectly made for this system. So that's what makes me curious to see what like a Russell Rowe, even maybe a Theo Bair can do in this lineup. But I don't I'm not looking at Larin where he goes in and out of the game, but I thought he worked hard and I thought he did what he could. The game needs to see Larin on the bench and forcing Schaff into this lineup, switching to two flowing strikers with a number 9. Two flowing strikers with no number 9. Barca Boy says, "What a performance! Canada can easily make it to the semifinals of Copa America. We have the road. It's there. If we can build on this performance and we can, I think, tighten up a little bit at the back, and if we can get points out of Chile and Peru and get a kind quarterfinal matchup, we can be the dark horses. But like I said, I don't think it's a guarantee at all. I think that Peru and Chile are going to be two very, very difficult matches. And I'm curious to see how the boys will do. Biggest takeaway, we could play Argentina again. Yeah, I don't know if we could play them again, but things will have to change. Kone was bad. Bombito looked confused, young sometimes, but Crepeau, Miller, Davies, Schaff were all cooking. What were your guys' thoughts on Liam Miller? Right there. Okay. Miller sucked, Josh. No way to rescue that performance. So, I don't know. I thought the second half, he was very, very quiet. I thought he had a positive first half. And like I said, I just think it's his ability to run at defenders and make them think about what's he going to do. Is he going to cut in, which creates space for Davies to do an overlap? I think they kind of complemented each other well, where, if Miller didn't have that threat, I don't know if it really would have been able to create that. But a lot of you guys really disagreed with that take. A lot of you guys did not like Liam Miller's performance. I asked Alex at halftime what his thoughts were, but I think he said that he liked the Miller and Davies relationship, but we'll have to see. Do you think Bombito should start again or Kamal? I would keep Bombito and Cornelius for sure. I don't like. The high line put them in a little bit of trouble, but that just happens. That's how Jesse wants to play. I think it'll look a little different against different opposition, but I would keep the two center backs. I'd play them all 3 matches. Would love to see Tanny or Bear last night. Yeah. I feel like Russell Rowe's the next man off the bench, though. Let me know what substitutions you guys would look to make for this next game against Peru, if you think any substitutions will happen. I'm looking at Richie and Schaff. I mean, honestly, those two. I don't know if he's gonna toss someone else in the midfield, like an Azorio or someone like that, or if he's gonna go with Larin David partnership once again. I feel like Larin's position could be up in the air. I was pretty impressed by Bombito. He's young, and he held up pretty well. Had a couple of mistakes there. Yeah, this is all very new to Bombito. I think that they made the back four was under pressure, but I think that we saw a lot of good things coming from Bombito as well. When it comes down to a 1v1 foot race, it's incredible watching Bombito go up and get some of the best players in the world, and make those kind of recovery runs. He's strong. I don't know, man. I like Bombito's performance. I'm curious to see if you guys agree. I would keep Bombito Cornelius pretty much throughout this tournament. And more than likely, if we're making a substitution, well, I guess you could maybe do that. If you bring Kamal in, you could shift Derek over to the right-hand side and you could take Bombito out, but I wouldn't do it. I would keep the 2 center backs. What was missing with Buchanan? Yeah, he's had a couple of pretty quiet nights. I thought, again, similar to Kyle Larin, I thought he worked hard. he just didn't find a lot of success down that right-hand side. In the first half, we played pretty much entirely down the left. I mean, when you have Davies there, it happens. And when Davies bombs forward the way that he does, Johnston has to be a little bit more conservative about the way he wants to go forward, which I think impacts Buchanan a little bit as well. It is a concern because Tajon is one of our best players, and you want to see him get into those spaces where he can create. I think he's, when he's in there, when it comes to putting a ball in the box, he's very good at it. His finishing sometimes can be questioned, but he just didn't really get involved over these past 3 matches. Low blocking against Argentina first half or high line? Like, are you asking what we should have done, or because we definitely played a bit of a higher line against them, and I felt like we were pretty exposed at the back from time to time. If it wasn't for the speed of someone like Bombito, we could have really, really been punished. Hey, JJD, sad Canada didn't win or draw, but at least you show a statement and also justice. Honestly, there's no way. I know that there's a lot of excitement around the national team, but at the same time, if we're being realistic about it, going into this game, it's Argentina. There's not very many nations that would go into this match expecting to get a result. I wanted to see a fight. I wanted to see this team try to implement some of what Jesse wanted to do. Right or wrong, we saw it. We saw a clear philosophy in the way that this team wanted to play. They were punished. A ton of chances came Argentina's way. It could have been uglier, but we created chances as well. We weren't afraid to attack. I think some players' individual performances were a big question mark. I thought Kone and Eustaquia would have had to been pretty perfect for this result to maybe swing a little bit towards our direction, and I thought Kone had a really tough time. Like I said, I wasn't worried about him being on the ball when it came to just pretty much standing still. And I don't think he turned the ball over much when it just came to him and he released it. It was when he made driving runs is when he got himself in trouble. He just didn't, in his mind, he didn't have that sense of, when to make the right pass, when to take a player on when he was running, and he got himself into a little bit of trouble. Especially watching what he did against France, where he was almost flawless. Standing still, he would accept a pass, make a pass, and then when he went on runs, he always seemed to make the right decision. And that just happens with a young player. They just took on the second-ranked nation, now the first-ranked nation in the world. Peru and Chile are going to be drastically different matches. That is a fact. And I'm excited to see how this Canadian side approaches the game, especially because I feel like we could have more of the ball in these next 2 matches. I really do. I could see where we have 55, maybe upwards to 60% of the ball, which means that maybe Chile and Peru will sit back and they'll look to counter if space is there. With our high line, they could have opportunities that way. And I want to see what we can do with more of the ball and if we can create chances. Because we created chances against France, Netherlands, and Argentina. We just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Jesse Marshall doesn't seem very worried about it. And you'd imagine with strikers like David Larin and even players like Buchanan and Davies on the pitch that against a Peru or Chile, they're going to find the back of the net. They need to. And if they don't, we're going to be in for a long tournament. We're actually going to be in for a short tournament because it'll be over. Schaff and Bombito were robbed for penalties. I don't know. The Schaffelberg one was outside the box. It was a clear foul. It should have been a free kick in a pretty dangerous position, but it wasn't a penalty. Hey, JJD, not the best game from Kone. Hoping for a better performance next game. I'm expecting a better performance from him, and I think we will get a better performance from him. Like I said, he is still very, very young, and he had a really, really incredible performance against France. If he's going to grow as a player, he's hopefully going to have ups and downs like this and see how he reacts to it and bounces back. And I think going up against opposition, again, with no disrespect to Chile or Peru, but they are not in Argentina. And I think that these players are going to have a completely different strategy going into this game. They tried to go toe-to-toe at times with Argentina. Didn't always work out, but like I said, we cut up chances. And I think against these next couple games, we're going to learn a lot about this national team and what it can look like going up against nations that are a little bit more our level. Easiest 2-0 in history, Argentina should have scored 5. They could have. Like I said, I think it's fair to say that this game could have been like 5-2. Because if Argentina put away their chances, Canada had a couple point-blank chances as well that they didn't score from. So, I don't think it felt it was in danger really from Argentina especially once the second half started. But I don't think it could be like a 5-0 kind of game. I think 2-0 doesn't really show what happened. I think if you're looking at really what happened in this game, you could look at like a 5-2 scoreline. Canada had chances too, which is not enough. Argentina was going to win this game one way or another, and they did. we should be mainly happy with the 2-0 loss. If we lost by 3 or more goals, we'd be worried about whether we're going to get out of the group. Yeah, I mean, keeping the score lines close, you never know how important that's going to be, especially, if we end up winning and drawing the next 2 matches, we'll have 4 points. More than likely, another team in this group could have 4 points as well. Goal difference is definitely an important part of it. So yeah, losing 5-0 would have been that would have hurt, and it would have hurt our chances as well. Kone gave it the ball away lots. He did, like I said. I felt like he gave the ball away more when he was going on those runs. He just wasn't making the right decision. He was getting pressed. He was losing the ball, and he was getting caught out. Against teams like Peru, Chile, unlike Argentina, what is Canada's plan since they need results in both games? Biggest danger moments were in transition when Canada had the ball. I think that in the next 2 games, I'm expecting Canada to have more possession. I think just the way that Jesse wants to play and seeing the way that we've had a decent amount of possession in these last 3 matches against top nations, I'm expecting us to demand the ball and have more of the ball to press, to counter press, try to win the ball further up the pitch and create chances that way. I think that when we have more of the ball, the line will be a little bit higher up, and I think that we will be caught out at times. Alex is asking me to send him the link. Let me see if it works. Maybe did I send him the wrong one? But yes, Alex and Ben, I think, are going to join us. And they got a fun story about their night last night that I think you guys will enjoy. I don't know if they shared it on Twitter or not, but I think some of you guys will really like that. But get some questions in. We can ask Alex once he joins in. I sent him the link, but apparently he's not able to open it. If not, maybe I'll send it on. Is it a concern that our strikers couldn't get in the box? Like I said, I'm a little concerned about the finishing because it's 3 matches now and it has not been good. Unfortunately, but like I said, I'm we have too good of strikers to imagine that it's not going to turn around. But we do have a guest joining us now. I'm excited to hear from him. Alex Gonge-Ruzik. Hello.
Hello, Josh. How are you?
Pretty good. And yourself?
Yeah, not bad. Just recovery, I guess, from everything that was that match.
I feel bad. Alex, obviously being a West Coast boy, probably was trying to snooze, and I was bugging him and Ben to try to get him on the stream. So I'm excited that you got yourself.
See,
some
not
time.
even. That's the funny thing. It was just, I mean, obviously game was like an 8:00 kick. Finished at 10. After you talked to everyone, it was like midnight. Had to go for a late night snack. Got back. Just didn't end up going to bed till late. It's hard to sleep after games when you're in the stadium from. So it was just more late to bed. Because I'd say I don't mind an early wake up. It's never been an issue for me. It's more when I don't get my a good bedtime. But you know what? It's Copa America, right? Rules go out the window.
Alex just excited to see my face once again, but I have a ton of questions to ask because it sounds like you guys had quite the journey. So just walk me through a little bit of just your experience with the game, not even the game itself, just being at the game. I know you told me that Argentina was clearly the home team. Your experience, I saw you were very close to Messi towards the end, so that had to be a pretty cool moment. I don't know if you saw the Davies Messi shirt swap, but I thought that was a nice little treat for Davies. And then I think Ben said you had a little story about who you might have linked up with when you guys went for waffles. I don't know if that's a story he wants to share, or if that's for you, or if you don't want to share it. But tell me about your day.
Yes, I'll let Ben share that one.
Okay.
From when he pops on, but it was just a fascinating experience, right? Just like being around that many people there for one thing, to watch a game like that. A lot of them to see Messi. Again, like I told you last night on the stream, I've never seen so many Messi jerseys everywhere. Number 10s. It was just like incredible to see the dedication of it. And interesting enough, that apparently that created an interesting split in the stadium because there was a lot of people from like Argentina. Like, I don't know if, again, if it depends how familiar you are with Spanish. The Argentine accent, it's very specific. It's very noticeable, and you heard it everywhere. But also, a lot of people are just there to see Messi. And we even had some like fun encounters. Like, I mean, I guess a different Waffle House encounter. These guys who had driven like 5 hours from Mississippi, and they were so ecstatic to just be there and spend $500 to get in the stadium to love Messi. And there's a lot of people like that. So funnily enough, it created an interesting split where everyone was there for Messi. They were all chanting, cheering for Messi. But then maybe not everyone knew, say, the like Spanish chants or like the Argentine chants. So that's some people are saying on Twitter that it actually wasn't even as loud as it could be, because about 60-70% of the people knew the chants. But certainly one thing was for sure: when Messi touched the ball, when Messi did anything, it was ear popping. It was, everyone was super excited and just looking for him to score. And yeah, you could just tell it was a party, like I mentioned before. If people were dancing, music, beer, drums, like they were just there to party. And the football, it's like, oh yeah, there's a game, let's show up and enjoy that too. And I mean, Argentina gave them plenty to cheer about in the end, although you could feel the stress when Canada was pushing. Like, it was funny, the stadium would go quiet. Canada, or like say Eustáquio made that header, I mean Martinez saved it, and you just hear up in this, like way up in the stadium, like they're in the roof of the stadium here, like just the voyageurs going, Canada, Canada, Canada. You're like, yeah, there you go. They're holding strong. It was great to see that energy. And then yeah, just after the game, it was funny to see the whole experience of a mixed zone, because it was chaos. You can tell some guys love it, some guys not so much. Like at one point I was sitting there talking to Alistair Johnston, who incredible speaker. He could sit there for hours. He was taking all the time. And like Angel Di Maria comes flying behind him because he doesn't want to talk to anyone. And like Enzo Fernandez comes right behind Alistair Johnston. I have no idea what the connection there is. I don't know if he's trying to recruit him to Chelsea. Comes and taps Alistair on the back, and they smiled and then walked away. I was like, that's interesting. Like, I'm not sure quite what's going on there. And then yeah, of course, we thought Messi wouldn't come. So a lot of players didn't even come through the mix zone. They kind of just snuck out the back. But Messi, no, he just walked right through and was just looking at people, and it was just almost surreal because he was there. And I'm like, oh, like just walk straight in front. You're kind of like almost tempted to scream out a question, but you're also on this second, you're just kind of like in awe, like watching him move. It was very funny to be that close to someone like that, just because you see him, and he's not a big guy, right? Like he's not an imposing guy. He's just a normal guy. And I guess sometimes maybe you forget that when you watch a game like that, where everyone's cheering for him, everyone's revering him all week, everyone's like waiting outside his hotel looking for a glimpse of him, and then you see him like, oh yeah, he's just a normal dude, loves the game, not the most outgoing guy, just doing his job. And I think it's funny to remember that sometimes.
So Chelsea and Alistair Johnston, we're gonna
make it happen.
We're gonna sit on that one. All right, that's good. But all right, so let's move on to the game itself, because we had a bunch of questions here in the chat throughout, and there's a few talking points I want to focus on. The first one is going to be Liam Miller. I know I asked you when you popped on at halftime about the partnership that was building with Davies and Miller, and something that I've had a lot of pushback on is, I mean, I don't think the second half was for Miller was as strong as his first half. But I felt like because Liam Miller is such a direct, tricky player, and he's got the ability to cut inward and hit one from distance and can do something special, it allows the option for Davies to overlap, and that just made it very hard for a defender to be able to deal with. Is he going in? Is he going to create space for Davies? And I thought they had a nice little relationship going. I know it didn't really pan out as well in the second half, but I say one of the biggest comments I've had so far on X and YouTube is that a lot of fans didn't like Liam's performance. So. I know that you're positive about it when I talked to you at halftime. Do you see it any differently now that when you have more time to think about it? Am I missing something? I didn't, because I just like the comments are just a little harsh on Liam. They don't think that he deserves to start again. Probably because Schaffelberg came on and impressed, but I just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't mind the Liam Miller performance, but I think it just depends on how you view wingers and attackers, right? Is it end product? Is it what they create, what they bring? I liked what Liam Miller brought in terms of direct play and how he ran at the defenders. But yeah, he got dispossessed quite a few times and lost the ball. Some even led to some dangerous transition moments. But he was trying things, right? And that's kind of the balance of, do you want your winger to be going at guys? Schaffelberg came in and went at guys. I think that's something that I thought Miller did a lot of that, but maybe it was just because he did lack, like, from Miller itself, like most of the end product kind of came from when Davies got the ball, or the Laren cross, or other moments that maybe Miller wasn't that guy actually making the final pass or getting a shot off, that you can feel I can see where that disappointment might come from. Like, oh yeah, you want him to be turning some of that stuff into actions, but I like the way he was driving, and I just say that because you contrast that to Tajon Buchanan, who we know can drive at guys, who we know can be dangerous and be just a threat down that right hand side. He was hardly doing that either. I feel like Alistair Johnston, who hardly jumped up, he was mostly kind of back three-ing, cutting inside. In the 2 times he jumped up, he created very dangerous opportunities, and you kind of wondered, like, oh, if Buchanan was getting the ball, getting in chances, why wasn't he driving at the guys? And I think that's the 2 different ways to look at wingers, right? You can have maybe Buchanan and Miller that ended up in a similar situation where they didn't actually create or shoot that much in terms of final product, but their games couldn't have been more different. And that's probably where, I don't know, I'd agree with you with Miller. And yeah, I thought, again, defensively, I wasn't too worried about the fullbacks for Canada. I think, again, most of the breakdowns were just, Argentina going direct, going over the top. But part of that was also Canada's game plan, because they suffocated space in the middle. They kept things tight. They made sure that Canada's midfield pivot, unlike, say, Canada-Croatia in 2022, where it was just open season, right? Run at Canada's midfield. That didn't happen last night until like the 80th, 70th, 80th minute, when Canada started to push for a goal and they kind of got tired. That wasn't happening in this game. So I think it was hard to look at that wide performance and be too frustrated, because I think Argentina wasn't able to do much out wide at all.
Now, for the next couple of games, knowing that Tajon Buchanan is one of our best players, how do you think Jesse can get more out of him? Because like you said, I noticed that the success we found on the left-hand side is because of that little relationship between Liam and Davies, because Davies was always bombing up the pitch. But like you said, I think I saw one run pretty much from Johnston, and he got in a good position when he did so. So when we're playing against a team like Peru or Chile, where you imagine we're going to have more of the ball, is there a little tactical tweak, or do you think just naturally playing a different opposition, Tajon's going to have more space, more opportunity?
Yeah, that's kind of what you wonder, right? Like, is that from Buchanan? Like, yeah, he was a bit quiet over these 3 games, but it was also the Netherlands, France, Argentina, but also he seems to like these games, and he's always seemed to push for these games. But yeah, lately, for whatever reason, he has been, a bit quiet. And even, of course, his game's not always goals, because he's been playing wing back, even fullback at times under John Herdman. But the fact he hasn't scored since March of 2022, I mean, I guess the opposition has varied over that time. It is tough with Buchanan. I wonder if maybe for him, and I think maybe he'll need that shock of coming off the bench, because you kind of see him naturally. I think anyone would be, the frustration of getting subbed at 55, 60. Maybe you just kind of need that shock of coming into a game and having that chance to prepare. Like, all right, I haven't taken my chance as much as I should have. There's wide players knocking on the door, right? Jacob, like, I think this discussion maybe is different if Jacob Schaffelberg isn't knocking on the door. Maybe you're like, all right, let's just ride it out with Buchanan. He'll find his confidence. Use that to your advantage, because it's a tough mix, right? And it's always something I don't envy of coaches. It's easy for us to sit here and be like, this needs tweaking, this needs tweaking, this needs tweaking. It's like up front, right? We've spilled a lot of ink about Kyle Laren, what to do up front, and what that means for Jonathan David. But then you see Kyle Laren yesterday working his bag off defensively, putting in a shift, doing a lot of dirty work. How is your coach? You're going to sit there and be like, all right, Laren, like, we're taking you out, even though you're working your ass off out there. Right? That's probably the part I don't envy the most about coaching, right? But for someone like Buchanan, I think it's something where you just say, look, Jacob Schaffelberg's putting in energy, making things happen. We're going to give him a look as a starter. Maybe he seizes the opportunity. Maybe he doesn't. May as well give him a look. Maybe Buchanan needs that shock of, all right, I need to just get back to where I'm at my best, simplifying my game and going at it. Because, yeah, it's something where he could be, in a game like yesterday, could be massive. The one weak link on that Argentinian team, or at least I can't even call it a weak link because it's very strong, but there is a drop-off from, say, the midfielders to the fullbacks, right? You would have loved to see Canada's wide players torch the fullbacks. You saw it with glimpses of Miller and Davies and even Johnston, but you felt like Buchanan could have had a field day against Acuna there in the right situation, and he really didn't. I thought that was a bit surprising.
But Schaffelberg did, so I think that's the big question mark. And that's, I mean, we're seeing it in the chat. I put a I mean, I've seen it. The number one tweet I saw yesterday was basically, Shaft's been a game changer, and he absolutely was. And this is where I want to go, Alex. And I don't think I've asked you that, or I don't even know what you're going to think. But when I just think of tournament football and different starting lineups, I had imagined, like when I look at this tournament right now for Jesse Marsh, I'd imagine we're going to see the same starting 11 for the Argentina match as we probably will for the Chile match, with the Peru match having probably a couple tweaks, with players giving them a little bit of rest and giving other players opportunity. I'm wondering, one, do you see it that way as well? Or do you think, is Jesse Marsh going to keep the same starting 11 pretty much throughout? And if he does make a couple tweaks, who do you think it's going to be? 3 players kind of come to mind. I think Richie Ray is a player that could push to start, depending on if you want a little bit more going forward. I think that you could put him in instead of Johnston. Maybe you put him in instead of Buchanan, but now you have Schaffelberg there. Does Schaffelberg go in for Liam Miller? Does he go in for Tejon? I don't think you change the center backs. At least I wouldn't. I wouldn't change the midfield. You're not taking Davies out. You're not taking David out, which then leaves Kyle Larin, which I agree. I wasn't too hard on him. I thought he worked his bag off, is the way you put it. He did a lot more than just like what you would expect. You expect him to score goals. He did a lot more than that, which I thought he had a decent performance. But at the end of the day, he didn't score, and I think that's what a lot of fans are kind of looking for. Plus, we have question marks whether how much he really fits the system. So then, is a Russell Rowe an option? So what do you think, Alex? Do you think there's going to be changes for the Peru match? Do you think it'll be the same starting 11? Will there be changes for the Chile match? And who do you see potentially coming in?
Yeah, it's hard to confidently answer because I don't think I know enough about Marsh to suggest, because I think there's a few ways of looking at it, right? I think, for example, the fact he's run back the same outfielders 3 games in a row against top opposition, it is a bit evil, I guess, in a sense, right? To drop anyone for a game that's maybe a bit more reasonable for Canada. Because we have to remember, right? Like, for example, like Canada, Argentina, like the qualitative gap that's out there on the field, like just the difference in level. You play these guys for 3 games. Maybe they're figuring things out. Maybe they're getting partnerships together. Maybe Marsh has been asking certain things, and then you shake things up maybe before a game. That is where Canada is more expected to go in evenly on paper, right? For the first time in Marsh's tenure. But then also on the flip side, I'm also of the mind that as a coach, and especially when you have a squad where you've got guys knocking at the door at different positions, reward performances. Like if Jacob Schaffelberg keeps knocking on the door off the bench, I'd love to give him a look, right? And even again, if he goes out and struggles, then at least you give him the look. It's all right, you earned your chance. You go back to the super sub role where you've been good. And if you keep doing well again there, we'll give you a chance, right? But then also for managers, I understand the idea of wanting to build familiarity, especially for a guy like Jesse Marsh, where, again, and it's something that Alistair Johnston, I'll write something up on it. He kind of just mentioned, like, the challenge of 3 weeks, brand new coach, learning everything on the fly. And, oh, yeah, like, here, you've learned the technical part of the lesson. Like, all right, you're not going to swim in the kiddie pool. You're learning how to swim. No, it's like drop into the deep end with sharks. Like, good luck, right? So that is also the kind of flip side. But to answer, I'd say 1 or 2 tweaks. You do wonder, especially like say fitness wise, guys are working really hard. If there might just be worth it to get some fresh legs, some of a different look. But I'd imagine maybe for Peru, he keeps things similar. Just to kind of give them a shot in that environment, and maybe against Chile, if things again clearly don't work against an opposition that where you're a bit more lined up, I think it changes. Because I think one thing that's worth remembering, I thought that was interesting from Marsh yesterday. Sorry, I'm rambling. I got all these different thoughts. That's good.
Get it out.
I asked Marsh about, because I'm curious. Every coach is different. I asked him, you created a lot of chances. Does that a coach? Are you happy thinking like we're gonna score? Or are you frustrated like, oh, we could have done better with what we got? And he was like, look, I'm happy. I have no issue. We're creating chances. I'd much rather have that. He says with the quality we have in the squad, he thinks they're gonna fall. Those are his words. He's like, it's gonna happen. I'd rather not be creating. And that's an interesting point. That again, it's very what if. It's very yada yada yada. They score one of the 4 big chances they have in the half. Yeah. The game completely changes. The game doesn't get stretched out because Canada probably defends a little deeper. The center backs don't get as tired. The midfielders stay a little more compact. The wingers don't push forward as much. Larin and David are able to, the game completely changes. And I wonder if Marsh is saying, all right, let's see if they can go out against Peru and get that goal and see how that changes his plan. Because we haven't seen what this Canadian team looks like when they're defending the lead because they haven't gotten one yet.
It's a fair statement, and you've heard this saying plenty of times for coaches. They would be more worried if the chances weren't there. Over these last 3 games against Netherlands, France, and Argentina, there has been a ton of chances. It's very bitter that we didn't put them away, and you'd expect someone with the quality of a Jonathan David, Kyle Larin to start putting some of these chances away. But we are still in the position that we'd imagine that we would be in going against Peru and Chile. Like no one probably expected us to get a result against Argentina, and goal difference could come into a factor, and we didn't get pumped. A 2-0 scoreline,
You take that.
You take that.
They might drop more on Chile. We'll see.
They might.
Right? Like, especially they'll be fired up thinking, man, it's funny. Again, the context of the game is hilarious, and it's something that stood out and maybe is forgotten. Yeah, Argentina poured in the chances by the end, but you have to remember at halftime, the XG was 0.7 to 0.5. For who? For Canada. The shots were 10 to 6. For who? For Canada. Again, if Canada scores in the first half, it completely changes. But by the second half, they concede minute 48. They're not going to sit there and play for a 1-0. They had to play for a 1-1. Yeah, naturally, you open up against a team with Julian Alvarez, Lionel Messi, Lautaro Martinez comes off the bench, Alexis McAllister. Yeah, you're going to leak chances. I think there's a lot of better teams in the world that are leaking chances when opening up the game against Argentina. I think that's something that also gets lost in the defensive performance. You look I think Argentina finished with 8 big chances, which, by the way, is absolutely comical. I've never seen a number that big, especially because they missed 6 of them. But most of those came after the first goal when the game state completely changed. And I think, again, all context points to the Canada performance that maybe gets lost just because you kind of get caught up in the emotion of the second half and how the game actually finished.
Absolutely. And I saw this, someone, I can't remember who tweeted it, but someone said, because a few fans were saying this could have been 5-0, 6-0 Argentina. And then someone was like, if we want to be fair about it, it probably would have been like a 5-2, 6-3 type of game if everyone's putting away their chances. Like Canada created chances. This wasn't just if
Canada scores their chances early, because that's the thing. There was a tale of Canada had their big chances early. Argentina's had theirs once they scored.
Yeah.
Canada scores the opening goal. Again, it's a whole different game.
No, I agree, and like I said, that there's a lot to be proud about. I think like you said, the second half is kind of what we remember a little bit more, and because it became so open and so crazy, and Crépeau obviously stood on his head, that people thinking that Canada didn't really deserve much from it, but it could have been different. And I'm expecting now that this gauntlet of matches are over, and we're in still a strong position to get out of the group. I'm really excited to see how this Canadian team is going to take on Chile and Peru. And I'm wondering, Alex, do you think that Canada will probably have more of the possession in these next 2 matches? I think the way that this team plays, presses, counter presses, that they will probably have more of the ball. And I think that probably Chile and Peru's chances will come on the counter. When Canada is higher up the pitch with that high line, that's kind of what I'm envisioning. Do you see it that way, or do you think I'm missing something?
Yeah, I'm curious to see about Peru because, again, they've had a new coach, Fossati, come in. He's playing more of a back 3, which usually indicates you want to hold the ball a bit more, hold a bit more in possession because they're not the quickest team, and you can kind of tell with how they're set up. They've got like Edvin Kula, who's in his mid-30s now at wing back. Like he's decently rapid, but they don't have any out-and-out wingers. It's like a 3-5-2. They're probably going to want to hold the ball a decent amount, so it's hard to say. And I think if you're Canada, if you're looking at the wing backs that Crew are employing, you're like, all right, then absolutely 4-2-2-2 with Miller and Buchanan or Schaffelberg or whoever else attacking that space is maybe intriguing. Chile for sure, because Chile, the way they're set up, Ricardo Gareca teams, they like to be transitional. They saw it with Peru before, that they don't mind being direct and transitional, of course, with how they're built. They don't have a whole lot of speed off the top, right? Like especially if they're starting Vargas and Sanchez and not Brereton Diaz. But so they'll kind of be a team of, if they can't counter right away, then they'll hold possession. So I think Canada will definitely hold a decent amount of possession against Chile. And I'd say against Peru, I don't know how much was the possession last night against Argentina. Honestly, I didn't check. If you have it, if you're able to pull it up, I'd say probably slightly more than they had against Argentina, assuming it was probably like 40 or 45 for Canada, right?
Canada had 36% of the ball.
Okay, so I'd say maybe Canada will have more, although I just say Peru. I expect them to hold more of the ball than you're used to seeing from them.
All right, if you guys are with us in the stream, drop a like and get some questions in. I'm going to try to get some rapid fire questions to Alex in the next 20 or so minutes. We're going to start here. I don't understand the Miller hate. Sure, he could have managed the ball better yesterday, but his main objective is to allow Davies to shine, and he did exactly that. I kind of like the way that he put that, and that's what I noticed in the first half as well. Like I said, I thought he created a lot of space with Davies, and some of the best chances came from there. I think that I really think that Jesse Marsh is going to stick with a very similar starting 11 throughout, like Alex kind of touched on. There will be changes because every tournament you see that. You need to rely on a couple of your players to be able to come in just for fitness purposes. But because Jesse's been with this national team for not a very long time, he doesn't have a lot to work with. So I think he's kind of picked his starting 11, stuck with it, and is trying to grow from match to match. So I think Liam Miller we can expect to start. At least I think so. But I mean, I don't know. Schaffelberg is right there on the doorstep. So, we'll have to see, Alex. I don't know if like I don't know. I wouldn't take Liam Miller out. I feel like this starting 11 works, and I want to see it going forward.
Yeah, I think again that's such a good point. That again, sometimes what some of Miller's actions, because he's cutting inside, he's causing chaos. It is to open a Davies up, right? It's to free him up, and I think I guess it's important to remember that sometimes Miller might be judged on what Davies does, and Davies was, thought he had a pretty good game, all things considered, and held well and had some great flashes. So yeah, I'd say if you're looking at changes, like we mentioned earlier, it's maybe on the right side where things weren't as effective, and I think that Miller Davies combo has been one that's shown pretty well, and something where they didn't concede in their first two games when they were on the pitch together, and now they did concede for the first time, but you're not looking at that Alvarez goal or that Martinez goal as anything that Miller or Davies did wrong. So I think you continue with that partnership and see what comes of it, and see what you can bring maybe on the other side of the pitch, that right side.
Absolutely. Now, Alex, let's move over to the four players that I thought were going to be the most important to any success against Argentina, and probably success throughout the tournament. I want to get your thoughts, because one of the number one questions, and we've talked about it a little bit, was just Kone's performance. I feel like it's harsh to look at Kone's performance and be worried about what he could bring against Peru or Chile. I think he is the occasion that got to him. He had a tough few moments, and I thought he just didn't make the right decisions when he went on his runs. I still felt like a lot of times when he was standing still receiving a pass, he didn't have any problem with the pressure around him. I just felt it was like once he bursted up the pitch looking to make a play, he turned the ball over a little bit. And I don't know if he was overthinking it or it was the occasion, but the issue I felt throughout that game, and maybe this is what this national team is going to run into, is I didn't feel like there was a way to take him off if he wasn't playing good. I didn't trust a Pierre Chouanier to really come in early into the match. I said on stream, I felt like we'll see an Osorio at the 85th because we're chasing the game. We're looking for a little creativity, and that's the substitution we'll see for Kone. And that's exactly what we saw. and that made sense. But in terms of if the game was closer, if it was like 0-0, I don't think Kone comes off. So I want to get your thoughts just on the duo with Eustachio Kone. Are you worried about maybe Kone going forward? Because I'm not. I think what he did against France showed the quality he had, and he had a bit of an off match this time. But I'm expecting some big things still for him throughout this tournament.
Yeah, well, I think with Kone, which is unique, and it's been something that's really thrived for him in his time with Canada. He's a street baller. Like, he's a guy who's, they say in French, he's a joueur de rue, like where he just plays a certain freedom and a certain way on the field, and it's fun to watch. Like, think Croatia when he came on, and people were pushing for him to come on. He was like 20 at the time or 19, balled out, looks so comfortable, and that's just what he's been at his best for Canada, right? Like France, he was out there gliding, turning. For him, it wasn't Eduardo Camavinga he's up against. No, it was his friend from down the block who he's been battling for 5 years, who if you have a bad game, you're going to hear about it all week, being like, man, I cooked that. It's that kind of street ball mentality. And I say that just because yesterday what I liked is that his confidence was still there to try stuff. And it was just more of an off day than any, it wasn't it was a bit of maybe decisions were off, but even then it was like he'd make a customary Kone turn. He'd look up, he'd try to pick out a pass, and then it'd be 5 feet over the head. Or he would turn and try to make a turn and push forward, and his dribble would be heavy and turn over. And I'd say, maybe it's something where you don't want that to be a habit, just because with the way that Kone plays, it's sometimes it could be high risk, high reward. Like he makes those turns against France, boom, takes 2 midfielders out with the turn, breaks the line, creates space, creates a chance, but also you mess up that turn, you got a 4-on-3 going on your way, and it's like Messi's one of the 4, Alvarez is one of the 4. So I think it's something where definitely for Kone, he'll look back at that game and be like, all right, maybe there's some areas I could have managed the ball a lot better. But what I liked is that he didn't really change his game. You could tell he was clearly having an off day, but it's kind of like the joke, right? They say it's like, sometimes you'd rather shoot 0 for 30 than 0 for 7, because at least 0 for 30 meant you didn't stop trying. Not to say Kone went 0 for 30. He had some good moments and grew into the game and started to make some of his trademark turns and passes, but you could tell he was off. And I think, you look at all the comparisons in basketball. Steph Curry has off nights. Heck, Lionel Messi had an off night yesterday. You're allowed to have those days where just the touch is heavy, the touch is off. Like you mentioned, great players don't make a habit of it. So, like, for example, Messi's probably going to go out and score a hat trick now that he was probably pissed that he missed all those chances. Well, for Kone, go out and just, get back to what you do best. Don't worry about it. You had a strong game against France, maybe not at your best against Argentina. I think based on the sample size, we've seen that Kone usually has a short memory. He'll bounce back. And I think the fact that he kept trying to do what he's going to do, he's going to go to training, he's going to lock in, and hopefully against Peru, he can have a dominant showing. So I think you look at that midfield, the game's really there for Kone to thrive against Peru.
Alex, someone made a little compilation of Kone's moments against France, and I kid you not, I probably watched it 10 times. It was just so incredible to watch what he was able to do in that space. And I literally asked myself going to this Argentina match, like, can he actually do that going forward? Like, was it like, not that it was at luck, but like the fact that almost every touch he had against France in that amount of pressure with 3-4 players around him and making the right decision almost every time, it just made me think, is he becoming this good, or is he going to run into troubles trying to do this time and time again, and will we get caught? And I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call for Argentina, but like you said, Alex, I don't want him to stop trying this, because we know that he can do it, and I think it'll be a big part of the success that Canada will find against Chile and Peru is this midfield of Eustachio and Kone being successful. But I did just get a message, Alex, from Ben, and I do want to hear the story he's got from the Waffle House, so I don't know if he's right beside you, but we can do a little swap out before we end off the stream, and I just want to thank you once again, Alex, for giving the time to come on. I know that you guys are busy down there in Atlanta, but I do really appreciate it, and I hope the chat does as well.
Oh, no worries. It was awesome to come in and chat, and I'm sure we'll still have a lot to talk about as this tournament goes on, but it was good just to, dive into a little thoughts. I mean, so much to dissect from a game like this and what it means, and yeah, that was the most interesting thing to see, just like what it meant, a game like this, of the frustration of Davies put it well. Like, yeah, they're pissed as players. Even Alistair Johnson is telling me again, you're not happy to go out and lose a game, but also recognizing that, it's top level football. Max Cripple used a fun Quebecois expression. At this level, you make mistakes, you pay cash. And that's to mean like you don't want to pay cash, because it's one thing to pay for your mistakes. Paying cash for your mistakes, who carries cash these days? These days you don't want to be ponying up your hard-earned 20s for the mistakes you made. So Canada will look at this game and hopefully they can go and prove in Chile, right? Because it's like the World Cup. This team, World Cup, you had your performance against Belgium where you showed the world you can go toe-to-toe and yada, 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 but we know what happened next. Well, now you've gone up against the world number one and showed that you're not scared of going toe-to-toe. A lot of people will have left yesterday like, okay, these Canadians, like, maybe some will think, oh, they were naive. But they went out there and gave it their all, and they had the game there for them. Well, now, go to Peru and Chile. Get what you need out of those games to push for the knockouts, and we'll see if they're able to do that.
I agree, and we're excited, and I think there's a good chance that we could potentially get hopefully 4 to 6 points and really push for second place.
Oh, that's it. That's the goal, right?
Absolutely. All right, is Ben taking your phone, or how's he coming? Is he joining us?
I guess I'll give him a shout to hop on the link.
Okay.
So
all right.
I'll hop out and I'll give you a few minutes to run through the chat.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it.
No worries. I'll see you soon, Josh.
All right. Big thank you to Alex. I think we're going to get Ben on soon for a very fun little story he's got for us. So get some of you guys' comments in. You can ask about the game as well, and we can get the thoughts from Ben when he joins, but I'll just go through some of your guys' comments. After rewatching the game this morning, I realized they trapped Kone 24/7. They defense watched France tape, so can see that they can't give him space. I think that he was consistently irritated and annoyed by him. Yeah, he was under a lot of pressure in the midfield. But like I said, I felt like Kone, when standing still, when receiving the ball, it just still felt like he was confident. He didn't make any errors. I felt like he was happy to receive it, and he made the right play. I just felt like when he was making those driving runs, which he's so good at against France, he made the right pass. When people were closing him down, he was able to get rid of the ball quick and pretty much to the right person. This match, he was under a little bit of pressure, and unfortunately, he had a lot of turnovers in dangerous areas. But we got Ben Steiner joining us from the exact same spot that Alex was. So I can see the same background. So Ben, I appreciate the time, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, and it certainly is the exact same spot. The coach is so warm from Alex. He and I have switched spots. He's now sitting in the hotel lobby. We've checked out of our hotel in Atlanta and just killing time. Talking to you, talking about an exciting Canada game, but it'd be nice to see Canada goal under Jesse Marsch as well.
Yeah, the first 3 matches, no goals. There is an expression out there. For a coach, it would be more worrying if the chances weren't being created. I think we can say over these last 3 matches that Canada has had a ton of chances. Is it luck? Is it just a little bit overthinking it? I don't know, but I'm not so worried. You'd imagine that someone like Kyle Larin and Jonathan David plus Davies Buchanan will come good in the next few matches. We can't keep this up. We're creating chances in these matches against top nations. It's a little unfortunate we haven't put one away.
Yeah, I mean, they've been forcing saves out of top goalkeepers as well. They've been getting behind these top defenses in the world. You see last night, Martinez was called to stop Eustáquio. Davies had a chance. David probably should have scored his header. The chances are coming. Like as Alex said before, like they're winning the XG battle against some of these teams that are the best in the world. The chances are going to eventually hit the back of the net. It would be more worrying if they weren't making these chances, if they weren't, getting the ball into attacking areas, getting those opportunities. And Jesse Marsch spoke about that after the game, that he's not so worried about the lack of finish because he knows the players, the quality that he has in the team, that, that's going to come eventually. I think something that he has to look at, and as Canadian fans are certainly discussing on Twitter, Discord, the forums, wherever you look, that maybe that Kyle Larin, Jonathan David duo isn't the one that's going to start finishing, whether it's a lack of confidence, whether it's a lack of composure in front of goal. Maybe you get excited having that opportunity against a France, a Netherlands, an Argentina, that it hasn't happened, and you might not feel those same nerves against a Peru or a Chile in the next coming games, and who knows about from then on. Of course, only the Mexico friendly really known as something in the future. U.S. friendly rumored, of course, but I think we can all say pretty safely that Canada's going to have more world-class opponents with Kevin Plew at the helm, that, you have to start looking at other options. I floated the idea of Lucas Cavallini yesterday, a bit jokingly, but, could he finish some of those opportunities that Kyle Larin's not finishing? Maybe he is the player to play off Jonathan David, but I don't necessarily want to look at him. Theo Bair was warming up on his own yesterday. I thought he might come in and make a difference. He didn't eventually sub in. We saw Jason Russell-Rowe, 5 minutes of him. You can't really judge off that. But I think there does have to be a different look than we are seeing with Kyle Larin and Jonathan David, because the finish just isn't there. And that is something you can adjust, even if it's not something that is necessarily worrying.
So I'm glad you went there, because I think it's a really good question. I asked Alex it, and I'm just using tournaments in general and the way that teams go. You usually don't see the same starting 11 throughout all 3 matches. You just usually don't. And I would have expected maybe to see this starting 11 against Argentina, probably this same 11 once more, whether it's Peru or Chile, but then probably a team that's got a couple substitutions in it where players are just on the bubble. Like I look at a Richie Larea, I look at a Jacob Schaffelberg, and I personally look at a Jason Russell-Rowe. I feel like he'd be the next man up to replace Kyle Larin. I feel like out of the strikers, I don't know what it is. I just feel like he's really well liked by Jesse Marsch. I think that, he was brought into the camp after a lot of success in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I think that he's a unique scorer. You can see Jason Russell-Rowe score from in the box. You can see him be that kind of poacher finner, but you can see him hit him from distance too. And I think he's a special young player. I know you and I, Ben, both would have liked to see Ike Ugbo. I just felt like the way he played this, it would have made sense for this team. We won't see that, but I feel like Jesse's the next man up, or Jason Russell-Rowe is Jesse's next man up. So if you were going to make a couple tweaks in a couple different positions, what do you think it could look like? And do you think it would be Peru or Chile if we see any tweaks to the starting 11?
I mean, I didn't see a single starting 11 prediction that was any different for this game, right?
No,
We all
no.
knew the starting 11 that Jesse Marsh was going to put out, and CanMNT knew as well. But they put out that Derek was going to be starting at center back. He was the one player on the 22 players listed without his last name, which was quite something. You'd think that might be one of the Argentinians with the way South American names go, or the recognition of some of them. But just Derek was a little funny to see on their projected lineups. I don't think we'll see many changes heading into the next match. I think the one change we could see is potentially a Jacob Schaffelberg playing on the wing. I could see Tajon Buchanan, being pushed into another position, whether that's switching sides, give him a different look, just something to refresh. We see the comment there. Jacob Schaffelberg can make a difference. We saw that he can make a difference in his 30 minutes yesterday. I would love to see him, try it out as a second striker even. Because he's played there a little bit for Nashville. It's not something that you necessarily see, but with the pace that he can offer, that's something that he could play off David if David drops a little bit lower. Other than that, I could see him on the right. But then again, are you scratching an Inter Milan player, right? You're not necessarily wanting to drop Tajon Buchanan because the potential that he can reach. But he was a little bit giddy last night. He wasn't necessarily settled into that game. And when he did get settled into the game, he wasn't a difference maker. And so that's a question I think you have to raise. Is Buchanan the right man to start? I think he probably still is. And so Schaffelberg would have to start on the other side then. And you're thinking, okay, Liam Miller, well, he had quite the game as well. And he's really come into his own over the last 3 games. And he's working well in a pair with Davies. Okay, do you put Davies as left winger? You maybe move Larea back. There's a lot of options there. But I do think it's just going to be a small tweak. We're going to see the same 10, except Laren. I think Laren gets dropped, and I personally would love to see Theo Bair, but I do think you're probably onto something in the Jason Russell shout.
Yeah, I agree. I highlighted 3 players. One was Richie Larea for Johnston. One was Schaffelberg. I think probably for Liam Miller or Buchanan, like you said, and the other one was Russell Rowe. But I don't think we'll see all 3. Those are just a couple options. I agree. It'll probably just be one tweak, and I'm curious to see if Jesse does stick with Laren, because I feel like he's probably the obvious one. There's also a lot of feedback from viewers. I thought Liam Miller had a positive game, and I thought the combination with Davies worked just because when, like I told Alex, when he drives inward, that's something for a defender to think about, which allows Davies to overlap. They were creating space for each other. I know Liam, he's the type of player to take on defenders. He will lose the ball. That happens. I want to see him try things because he can do something special when he hits it from distance. And I thought those guys created a lot of opportunities in the first half. I thought he died out a little bit in the second half, but there was a ton of criticism coming online for Liam Miller. And I was a little bit surprised by that. And even in this chat right now, I've seen a lot of comments saying that he had a good game. And I saw a lot of people saying that he tried too much and he lost the ball too many times. So quickly, Ben, what was your take on Liam Miller's performance?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, there was a couple points where I looked over him to Alex and I'm like, Liam Miller fancies himself playing in an Argentina shirt, doesn't he? Because of the way that he was approaching some of the moves he was making and little backheel flicks, and Argentina would go play pure football for a 2-minute span in possession, get a chance against Canada, and Liam Miller would come out and be doing things that looked like he was Lionel Messi at points, but of course he wasn't, and it wouldn't quite come off. I think he has to settle down a little bit because we saw a settled Liam Miller against France, and that was exceptional. He hit the crossbar. We saw those overlaps against France, against the Netherlands. There was a lot to like about Liam Miller's performance in those 2 friendlies, and I don't think we necessarily saw that in this match. But it's hard for me to break up that pairing of Liam Miller and Alphonso Davies, because that seems like something with immense potential for the Canadian men's national team moving forward.
Especially not playing a nation like Argentina. I'm excited to see what they could potentially do against Peru coming up next. But Ben, I want to hear a little, right? But I want to hear a little bit about your experience there. I asked Alex about his. Tell me what it was like just to be part of that atmosphere, watch those fans. I know there was a lot of Argentina fans, a lot of Messi jerseys, and then I think you have a little story that you're willing to share about a Waffle House maybe towards the end of the night if you want to share that. But let me know what you think, because it seemed like a really unique experience for you too.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. It was a little bit chaotic from the media side of things. Everyone had to have these little cards to get down to the mix zone, which for anybody watching, that's where the players walk through. Messi walked through, which was, a little bit surreal. I tweeted the photo out on our Northern Football Podcast account of Alex looking there, and I backed up to take the photo of Alex with Messi as well. So all the players walk through, and you needed a special card to get in there. You needed a special card to go into the press conference, and one to get in the press box, and you had to be changing these cards. And at halftime, Alex hadn't gotten a card. He was getting on the Vamos show on One Soccer with you at halftime. And I had to go out, pretend to be Alex. And this person, a commendable media director, was standing on the top of a table, giving, reading out names of who is the lucky people who got these little cards. And Alex, of course, was on the fourth page of 4. That was read at about the 16th minute of halftime. So thank you, Argentina, for coming out a little bit late. You made me not miss the second half. And I get Alex's card. I go up. It was chaotic. It was like the Hunger Games. And then, post-match, the Argentinian media is just something else. There were maybe 200 Argentine journalists and 6 Canadian journalists, I think. So it was quite the experience from, just a media perspective. I never quite covered an event like that. I've covered some big events. But then from, seeing that game, seeing those fans, I dropped by the Canadian supporters before the match, and they had taken over 2 bars in downtown Atlanta. Like, there was a decent amount of red and white among the blue and white as well. And that's something that, you've come to expect now with this Canadian team. The best part was easily when I walked up to the bar and a ton of Canadian fans were outside. One guy in a Joe Sakic 2006 Olympics jersey shouting about, no, they're not trading Marner. They will trade Marner. And I was just like, you know what, this is not the conversations I was expecting at Copa America. Then Alex and I, of course, both from Vancouver, we get to the press box, we're looking down. I'm like, Alex, do you see the Pavel Bure jersey that's in the stands? It was my most liked tweet of the night of all things, was the Pavel Bure jersey, because it caught on to Vancouver. But yeah, no, it was wild. The Canadian fans were giving their all. I mean, unfortunately, couldn't really hear them with the amount of Argentinian fans that were there, but it was chaos. And I mean, the Argentinian support is something different. I was talking to another one of my friends, and he said, it's probably all the plastic fans who travel around the US to see Messi. I'm like, no, these ones are legit, whether they're expats or whether they're actually from Argentina. These fans are not the ones wearing the Inter Miami kits.
I missed your tweet, but I just found it.
Yeah,
there you go.
That was wild, man. Like, I was. It was like funny. A Where's Waldo of Canadian things, but like it sticks out like a sore thumb. The Canucks skate jersey, a terrible knockoff too. I doubt the guy's watching right now. But if he is, go buy a new jersey, man.
Oh, that's hilarious! All right, and now it's time for the story that I was waiting for. I think, if are you allowed to share it?
I don't want to go too deep on it.
No, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to share.
We ran into a family of a Canadian men's national team player at Waffle House around 2 a.m, and they recognized Alex and I, and we're very nice, very nice to catch up with. And there were a few Argentinian fans around there as well that couldn't quite believe that we had the chance to be within a foot of Messi. And Alex has this video of Messi winking into his camera as well. The guy asked him to airdrop it in line. So it was quite the experience. And the parents of the Canadian men's national team player were very nice as well.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I didn't want to throw you in the spot, but you told me, and I thought that was pretty cool. And it was probably a pretty special moment for you guys. And my final question for you, Ben, before we wrap up the stream, is what are your expectations for Peru? Just as simple as that. Now that the gauntlet's over of matches, I want to know how you think Jesse's going to approach the game. And I'm curious about the possession, because I told Alex, I mean, we both agree that in the Chile match, we're expecting Canada to have probably a good majority of the ball. He thinks that'll be a little bit more even for Peru. So I'm curious to get your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the next 2 games and you look at the gauntlet that they just went through, and you think it's easy, right? I think there is elements of that are true, because Canada has shown that there's people. I'm waiting to kick me out of my spot here because I'm just in the hotel lobby and probably annoying people. But you look at the next couple games, that Peruvian, it's probably going to be around 50-50 possession. They like to hold on to the ball, but if they hold on to the ball and Canada can counter, that's an opportunity that Canada has, and maybe a space for Buchanan to have a better game, right? We've seen Buchanan have good games when Canada can counter. And if he can make a difference, if he can get up to speed, maybe that's something. They've got to score a goal. I think that's got to be the minimum. I hate to be in another tournament of this magnitude and saying that Canada just has to score a goal, but that has to be the minimum expectation for Canada, but they should be going out thinking that they need a win, because if they don't get a win, then maybe you're not playing for anything in that third game. If they get a win, they're at least playing for something when they go to Orlando against Chile. That's the bare minimum. And I think the expectation can be there. They could have gotten a result against Argentina if it weren't for a little Argentine, 5'8", number 10, that has made the difference against many other teams. And a lot of Canadian fans are mad at Richie Larea for not tracking back or playing Alvarez on side. Like, okay, it's messy. There was one pass to make. He made the pass, and I was watching the goal back several times. The second goal, like, there was nothing Canada did wrong. Like, every player tracks their man, tracks their space. Like, it was just a messy moment there that we saw. So yeah, I mean,
the weighted pass, messy magic.
Yeah,
nothing
Canada can get a result against a team like that for 60 minutes. But the thing about Peru and Chile, they don't necessarily have that astounding difference maker. It's not a Mbappe, a Camavinga, a step down. It's not a Messi, DePaul, Di Maria. Like, there's not that. And there's not necessarily like a Memphis Depay either, right? It's a team that Canada should get a result against.
I'm hoping for expectations, 4 to 6 points, and that we're going to need at least 4 to 6 points to try to push to get out of this group. And I think what this team can do, I think it's there for the taking. Whether they'll do it, whether they'll execute it, we'll have to wait and see. But Ben, I'm gonna let you go before you get kicked out of your spot there. So I really appreciate the time, boys. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, and keep up the good work. You can catch Ben and Alex over on their podcast, the Northern Football Podcast. So if you guys want to check them out there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Josh. And you're gonna join Alex at a diner that he's ended up at. He's left his little spot and sent me a text. But definitely need a coffee if you can hear that in my voice and my eyes.
No, I appreciate it. It's a little dimmed out, so you guys look great. All right, Ben, I appreciate it, my man. Cheers.
Awesome. Chat later. See ya.
All right, good stuff. Appreciate the boys coming on for this little morning after stream. They were up till 2 a.m. and I'm assuming they didn't have much sleep, and I was bugging them to try to get on. So I really appreciate their time there. I appreciate you guys as well. You guys have been fantastic throughout our Copa America coverage. We have a few more things coming up. We have a preview coming on the channel. I put out a 5 takeaways video if you guys want to check that out. It's already up. We got a preview coming up. I believe Joshua Cloak will be appearing on it as long as we can make it work as well. So the preview will be coming out for the Peru match. And yeah, we'll have some more streams coming up as well. You guys have been fantastic. So before we wrap up the stream, it's time to hear from the channel sponsor. Big shout out for them for allowing, and showing support on the channel. BetStamp. If you guys like to bet, this is the Trivago of sports betting. If you want to help the channel out as well, you can click on the link in the description. So big shout out to our channel sponsors, BetStamp. Exciting news for the channel. I'm thrilled to announce that JJD TV is partnering up with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert. This opens up an incredible opportunity for you to join up with some of my favorite sports books to get the best odds and user offers throughout Copa America. Head over to my dedicated page at signupexpert.com/JJDTV to explore a selection of sports books tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take your sports betting to the next level throughout this tournament and want to show some love for the channel, I highly recommend you signing up for your next sports book through my Sign Up Expert link. You can easily find it in the description of this video. Shout out again to BetStamp. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys tuning in for the streams. Keep an eye on the channel for the Peru preview. Our 5 takeaways video is out, and then I'll be doing a day of stream for the Peru match, our morning after stream as well. 5 takeaways. Just a ton of content. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. It's a great opportunity for Canadian soccer right now, and I'm expecting now that the gauntlet's over, this Peru and Chile match should be pretty interesting. So I appreciate everything, guys. Drop a like on your way out, drop a sub, and we will see you guys soon. Cheers, friends.